To say you gotta know somebody, oh know somebody to get somewhere these days. To say you know that's alright, yeah that's alright, 'cause you know that's alright with me. Yeah, you know that's alright, yeah that's alright, 'cause you know that's
office building. So that was one explanation why the cap rate was so high. Then I started asking myself, well, if an 8% cap rates are what other buildings in this area are selling for, then why isn't this building listed at 3.3 million? And I suppose that at a certain point, you know, I don't know, maybe the realtors felt that price was too high. Maybe the realtors felt that they'd never get financing for it. That could be a reason. And then I started to wonder myself, okay, so if I'm getting a building that competitively cap rated to other buildings in the area, or should be 3.3 million, why is this place available to me for 2.1? And I started thinking about it, and I realized I'm really buying a business here on top of a piece of real estate. Now that's a very time-intensive kind of a thing. And rich people, okay, which, you know, I'm a local, you know, minimum wage kid from Philadelphia, okay? So I'm not a rich guy, and I don't think like a rich guy. But a rich guy wouldn't want to buy a building that would require him to be involved in running a business, hiring employees, and managing this massive facility, okay? Rich guys want to buy a passive investment that they can go to once every 3 months and make sure that everything's fine. Other than that, they don't want to be bothered with it, okay? So this kind of a building required a guy just like me, a guy who was barely qualified to buy this building, all right? Actually, I was less than barely qualified. I'll explain that when if I can get to it today. But I knew that I was a guy that if I could pull it off, if they were dumb enough to sign an agreement of sale to allow me to buy this building, and if I could get the financing to put this deal together, I was the kind of guy who was willing to pour my heart and soul in it to make this place work, okay? So even though I show you these formulas and everything, you can hear from what I'm saying to you that I basically calculated, you know, a lot of my decisions just on common sense, okay, which anybody can do. Dig into the deal, figure out how you feel about it, and does it make sense, and then do it. Here is a very simple formulation that a lot of people use in commercial real estate. So I just explained the cap rate a little bit. This is one you can use to just double check yourself. And it's called the times 10 valuation calculation. Dave Lindahl is a big fan of this. He teaches this to people, but it's really very basic. You just take the NOI and times it by 10. And it gives you the approximate value of the building. If you do it in this case, $268,000 times 10 should bring you to 2.6 million. So, you know, it's a very simple calculation to just give you a starting point. And after doing it, I said to myself, well, I guess I'm saving myself $530,000. I don't know. When it comes to commercial real estate, what I said before I started talking about it is I'm going to show you how to calculate it, but in the end, it's really just simple common sense. You say to yourself, you know, so I did 2 calculations. One of them told me the building was worth 3.3 million. The other one told me it was worth 2.6 million. So I'm feeling pretty good about buying a place for 2.1 million. And that's really how I came up with the decision, okay? So I'm just going to get technical here for 1 minute. There's actually a way to look at the cap rate inside the cap rate. Like if someone says to you that the area cap rate is 8%, okay? Well, they could be basing that on the fact that office buildings in that area are selling for 8%. But how did they come up with that number? Well, there actually is a breakdown of how the cap rate is figured. So if in an area you're buying a building, there's no cap rate at all, or you just want to figure it for yourself, here's a way where you can actually break it down, right? Starts with this. You're going to get an 80% mortgage on this particular property at 7% interest rate. So you just times 0.07 times 80, and you come up with a number of 5.6. Very simple calculation. Now you guys could write this down, but like Jeremy said, if you just email us, we'll give you these slides, okay? Then you take the down payment that you're going to put down on it, and what return on your investment you're thinking of getting. So in this example, I just put 15%. So 20% times the 15% return on your money gives you a figure of 3. And then you just add those two figures together. 5.6 and 3.0 equals 8.6, and there you go. This is a very simple calculation. What that teaches you is this calculation comes up with a cap rate. It doesn't take into consideration what the local buildings are worth. It doesn't take into consideration what the realtors have determined the sale price was. You can figure this out for yourself based on how much money you're putting down and what rate you are capable of negotiating. So it proves to you that you could actually determine your own cap rate based on your ability to negotiate a good interest rate for yourself, your ability to put X amount of dollars down on it, and you know, your ability to get a mortgage. So it just shows you that outside factors adjust the cap rate. So what I'm trying to explain to you here is that, so that here's just several ways. So if you find a commercial piece of real estate that you're interested in buying, you look at the numbers, you look at the gross income, you look at the expenses, you figure out what your NOI is. You do your calculations to determine what kind of rate of return you're going to get on it, what your cap rate is. Then you got the 10 times calculation is the second way to double check yourself. And then you can even break it down simply by the amount of money you're borrowing, at what interest rate you're borrowing it, how much money you're putting down, and what your rate of return is. And now you've got 3 different ways to figure out what it is you should be paying for this building. Isn't that simple? It's easy. I'm not basing my decision in commercial real estate on comps. What are comps anyway? It just means that somebody else paid that much money for a building on that street. So what? Maybe those people were terrible real estate investors. Okay? That's what commercial real estate taught me, is that I don't want to base my decision on buying a piece of property on what somebody else was willing to pay for it. What's that got to do with it? I'm supposed to be the professional, right? I'm the guy that wrote the book, not them, right? I'm the guy standing up here talking right now. I should be the one to determine that on my own and be completely confident that this deal is a good deal, all right? So that's how you do it. You just figure it out for yourself. After I learned this, I started applying this kind of thought process to every piece of real estate I've ever looked at again. I don't do any of the research that he showed you today anymore. I'm not suggesting if you're new in the business you shouldn't do any of it. Everything that he talked about today is really important information. Great things. I do very little of it. I walk in and just you know, does this make sense? So I'm a little crazy though. You don't want to be following me. So a couple other things. When you look at a piece of commercial real estate, okay, realtors who represent commercial real estate typically are a whole nother world from the general realtors that all of us, a lot of us in this room are. They love to talk about pro forma numbers, okay, meaning what this building has the capability of earning in the future. I recommend you take that number and throw it in a trash can and totally disregard it. You buy a building based on what it makes right now, and that alone. How much money does this building make? End of story. Okay? How much money it makes is the gross income. How much does it cost to keep that money coming in? There's your expenses. You determine your NOI. End of story. I refuse to have a conversation with anybody about what this building's capable of making down the road. I'm not going to pay for what it's capable of making down the road. That'll be my problem. And that'll be my profit. If it's capable of making more, then why isn't the current manager getting busy doing that right now? You'll hear that all the time in commercial real estate. The value of the building is, well, this store over here isn't rented right now, but we can get $3,000 a month. Okay, well, why aren't you getting $3,000 a month? Well, you know, I've been very picky about the kind of person I've put in there. I've been turning down tons of applicants. Well, I've heard that story before. Yet 2 years later, I'm driving by a building, it's still vacant. Okay? So don't believe that for a minute. If it's empty, it comes off the balance sheet. You're buying it for what it makes, and that's it.
The other thing to add on that, this is kind of like a tax thing that has to do with tax morals. A lot of times the guys don't report it because they want to save money on taxes. They don't report it the way that it actually goes down, you know. So they're like, you know, getting one over on the IRS or something. And the funny thing is that that's actually in your favor, because if you're basing it on actuals, if they're screwing it, oh well, you know how things go. Look, I can only base my numbers on actuals. So if they're cheating the IRS, you win.
Well, that's a good point. And what happens sometimes, I've bought buildings where the people said, see this $25,000 expense? This isn't really for this building. I got a kitchen done in my house, and I wanted the tax write-offs for my building. I said, fine, fine, before I buy your building, you better have me over for dinner. I want to see your damn kitchen. Show me how, because I know what kitchens cost. I value entire buildings just walking in them. So you better have me over for dinner. I want to see some granite countertops. I want to see some 42-inch cabinets with crown molding on the top, okay? You spent 25 grand on your kitchen, you know. It won't take me longer than, by the time I get to dessert, I'll know if you're telling me the truth or not. All right. So I want to reiterate that I don't use a calculator, okay? I barely even own one. No programs. I don't use any programs. I use common sense. Okay? This business is a simple business, right? And comps in particular today, you know, be careful, because in a market that's doing this, maybe it's flat, maybe it's going down, I'm not really sure at this moment, but certainly not going up. You can't have a lot of faith in your comps. There's plenty of things that I look at today. I look at the comps and maybe there's 3 comps, but you know, they're all over 9 months old. You really got to ask yourself, how much weight can I put in these things? You can't trust them. I don't trust them even if they were current, but you can't trust them today even less than you could in a hot market. In a hot market, you can trust them, but in a down market like this, you necessarily can't.